get it going. So the mode and approach we want to take, we've had some questions already prepared, and there will be more people, there will be chance for more people to ask questions as we go along. But the way we want to go is I will ask the questions and the relevant, and probably point to the relevant stakeholder to respond to them. Of course, every other one that will be on the panel will be able to participate. Now, for the panel, we are having the mayor, Joe, Cheryl, and Councillor Ray Watkins. And we also have Mawuse, that was part of our society, but has also been living in St. Albert for over 20 years now. So he knows a lot of things going on around and what he has lived through over the years.
I don't know as much as you think I know. So.
Okay, but anyway, for you to have lived over 20 years in a place, I would expect that you know something that might be hidden from those of us that are just like 10, 12 years here. But with that said, those will be the people on the panel. If MP Cooper wants to be part of the panel, you are welcome to join, sir.
Yes, well, I'm happy to be here to listen and to answer any questions that are put forward. So,
okay, that would be great. So we would just add you to the panel, and if there's anything you want to say before, you are free to say so. So in order to get going, Mayor Cathy, we want to get a welcome address from you. This is your terrain. Even though it's virtual, it's still part of your terrain, still part of your municipality in the virtual crowd.
Okay, I will kick this off, I'm happy to kick it off. This is actually quite exciting. Helen and I had a quick conversation through Facebook a couple weeks ago about what to do given the current circumstances, and I'm not talking about COVID circumstances. I'm talking about other things that were occurring in the United States, and then that, of course, spilled over into Canada. We talked about having a barbecue because that is really, my favorite thing to do, and get together with people and visit and eat food. I think we were willing to do that. We could have had 100 people or so, but I really respected Helen saying that this is not the right time. This is lots of people aren't comfortable gathering at this point in time. So the virtual option is what we're using tonight, and so this will work really well, I think. I think, I watched other municipalities and how they have responded to some of the riots. I actually don't want to call them riots, the rallies that were happening in the States and in Canada. And for example, the city of Edmonton did a multi-day public hearing, and they had lots of presenters, and that would have been an option for us, but I honestly think this option is a little bit better. I think we'll have a nice free-flowing conversation today. So I've got my pen and paper here. I'm here to listen, as MP Cooper said, take suggestions. Honestly, quite often we need to take suggestions. I grew up in St. Albert, a white girl living a very privileged life here in St. Albert, and I admit that. And so quite often, I don't say I don't see color, but we don't see it as different. When I was making my inaugural address 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago now, right after I was sworn in as mayor, I asked Ray, I said, Ray, how would you like me to acknowledge the fact that you're the first Black elected in St. Albert? And I didn't know what to say. Is it Black? And he said, why don't we just say Canadian of African descent? So that's what we used, but I wanted to make sure that was okay with Ray. And so I think there's a lot of work to be done there. I hope Ray gets to say a few words right now, because it's amazing having Ray on our council. He does offer a perspective, and not a different perspective in anything, but especially when it comes to the policing committee and how he has been feels that he's been profiled in the past and his kids. So he actually offers an amazing perspective. So hopefully Ray, as part of the panel, will probably add to this. So we've done a lot in St. Albert on the word inclusion. And quite often we think of inclusion as, welcoming the LGBTQ community or welcoming the disabled community, and we don't often see it as welcoming a race community. So I think that probably makes sense right now. So looking forward to tonight, looking forward to questions, looking forward to laughs, looking forward to a good conversation. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Mayor. So, and just so that we get more perspective, I would like to invite each of the panel members to kind of, like the Mayor said, say something for some few minutes and introduce themselves and what you have for this, as part of this discussion. So Mayor MP Michael Cooper, I will start with you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And it really is a privilege to be here, to have an opportunity to connect virtually and to have a discussion on some of the issues that are pressing at this time. And certainly issues around some of the news events that we have seen over the last few weeks. But there are other issues as well in terms of COVID and the impact that it is having in so many different ways, socially and economically, and so on. So I'm going to, of course, it's your meeting, you're hosting it, I'm your guest. And one of the things that is really important in order for me to be able to do my job effectively, to represent the people of St. Albert Edmonton, all the people of St. Albert Edmonton in Ottawa, is to get feedback on the issues that matter to you and your thoughts and your perspectives. And I'm happy to provide my take on issues as well. But it's important that we have this dialogue. And as I said, when you first introduced me, I want to spend a lot of time listening because I think that's really what is important. And so I look forward to a wide-ranging discussion. And I just want to reiterate some of the points that Cathy mentioned and fully agree with what she had stated. We have a very diverse community, in a lot of ways an increasingly diverse community, and an inclusive community, but sometimes there are issues that are beneath the surface. And perhaps me, as a member of Parliament, someone who isn't a visible minority, perhaps I don't see all of those things the same way that you see them in terms of your everyday experiences. So getting that input from your perspectives is really, really important. So I look forward to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike. I would like to get Councillor Ray Watkins to give a brief introductory statement.
Okay, I probably come at this a lot different than a lot of people and a lot of the African Canadians, because even though I am a descent of African heritage, I don't even know what tribe I'm from because it's so far back. What I do know is I am on both sides descendants of slaves, and my family on both sides escaped on the Underground Railway and came to this country documented around 1840s, prior to Confederation. And so I've been, and my family have been fighting racism and systemic racism since 1840. Basically, slaves came here to escape slavery in the US, but they came to Canada, and even though they were free, they still faced a lot of prejudice and a lot of racism. And you know, my kind of lens has been formed by stories told by my grandparents and my parents. And like, for instance, when my dad tried to enlist in the Canadian Armed Forces in the 40s, they didn't want to enlist him because he was Black, and they didn't think Blacks were intelligent enough to be in the Air Force. So my dad, the man he was, he sat there for 4 days in the recruitment office and demanded to be enlisted, and was finally enlisted in the Canadian Armed Forces. And when we went to move to the house that we lived in 1959, there were housing laws on the books that allowed for discrimination in housing. And my parents, along with some other people, fought those laws and had the housing laws change in Ontario that meant you couldn't discriminate against race, color, or creed. So I've kind of come at this from a much different angle. My family's been here for a long time, and I'm still asked, where am I from? And if I'm Canadian, you know. And I think the fact should be that everybody's a Canadian, regardless of their skin color. And probably the people who are the most Canadians are the First Nations people, and they're the ones who've probably been done the wrongest of anybody. So, I mean, really, I think like St. Albert is a wonderful place. You know, they elected me, a Black person, in a city that's 97% white. So, you know, how, you know, there's a good call there that it's a very open community to everybody. But there still are some issues. My kids all face name calling throughout school from grade 1 right to the end of high school. And that's why I'm glad Joe is here, but I'm disappointed that the other 2 school boards aren't here, because they should hear.
They have joined. They've joined now.
Oh, they're joined, yes. And they faced a lot of name calling and a lot of things all through school, all through high school. But like I say, this is a great community. It's welcoming. I am very proud to be the first person of color elected to council. And I think as a community, what we should do is realize that any form of racism, whether it's a joke or a comment, is hurtful and it's not funny. And as people who aren't of color, you should call it out. Every time you hear an off-colored comment or joke or racist comment, people shouldn't be silent, and they should speak up. And also on that is, people aren't born with racist thoughts. They're taught them by somebody, either their parents or the caregivers or relatives or peers, and now by the internet. And so as parents and as educators and as people in society, we have to teach people that those thoughts and those comments are wrong and that they're hurtful. And it starts at home and it starts in schools. So those are my comments, I guess, for now. Probably quite a few comments, but.
Thanks you, Councillor. There will be more time to talk when questions keep coming. And believe me, we have lots of them for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to acknowledge Cheryl Dumont and other members of the St. Albert Public School. Welcome to the meeting.
Thank you. Our chair, Glennis Edwards, is on the line too. And I see that Stanley Heron, one of our trustees, is on the line.
Okay.
Thank you.
So your chair is on the line. Should we be added? Your chair would be joining the panel, I believe, and you two would be, right? Because there will be a panel.
We're here to listen and learn. And we missed the first few minutes, so perhaps you could outline what the expectations were for us.
Okay, so just to repeat, what we did say was that we would have, we do have questions that are already pre-prepared, and we are also going to take questions from the audience that would be responded to by the relevant stakeholders. Like if questions are related to schools, we expect Joe and the public school board to respond to it, but other members of the panel would also be able to respond to the questions, and it can form the discussion that we're going into.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and we just did Cheryl. And like I mentioned, one of us is joining. Mawuse, you have
Right.
the floor.
All right, so I am the one of us. Hi. my name is Mawuse Golokuma. I have lived in St. Albert for close to 25 years. I lived in Erin Ridge, Deer Ridge, and now Kingswood. My kids are 23 and 25. I raised them here. I recommend St. Albert. When folks ask me where I live, I make sure I don't say Edmonton. I tell them I live in St. Albert because I think it's an amazing.
You should.
It's an amazing place. I tell the story of, one day we had some really loud noise in our house. Long story short, cops came in, told us to stay upstairs, pulled out their guns, put their lives on the line, went downstairs, and made sure we were okay. I regret now not posting something in the Gazette because it's something I always wanted to do. Maybe I'll still do it.
You have
so I've had an amazing experience here. And I'm just an ordinary citizen who fundamentally cares about building strong communities. Yes, I mean, I've been a quiet citizen for a while, but being quiet and being law-abiding is also part of building a strong community. But the reason that I availed myself to play this role is this. Prior to this, recent events, I would have been a reluctant participant in a conversation like this. I was leading my life quietly. However, when I began to just pay attention recently, I would say something provocative here, which is, I want to protect this community, okay? And I am so proud of this city that I don't want us to be on an accelerated path to what I see on TV. Frankly, some would argue that we're already there. So let's make sure we don't get there, right? That is why I'm availing myself to this. I'm not an expert on race relations, and so I'll defer to sources like the CBC for the basics. But in the last few weeks, here's what we all know as Canadians, that the Premier of Ontario is saying we are not like the US. The RCMP chief has denied the existence of systemic racism, only to turn around and do an about-face on that. The Premier of Quebec has said there is no racism, there's no systemic racism in Quebec. 2 days ago, I watched another documentary on CBC called Above the Law. I'm sure some of you saw it, in which a young man from Ghana, where I was born and raised, his name is Godfred Adai-Nyamiche, was left in the cold by Calgary police, and they came and picked him up and beat him up some more. We all know the whole story there. If you haven't, it's on CBC. The fact is, and then, then you find out some more that, Blacks and indigenous folks are 8% of the population, but make up 40% of the prison population. I watched this on CBC 2 days ago. Now, try telling Godfred, the guy in Calgary, that we are not like the US, okay? So with that context, I just wanted us to have a kitchen table type conversation about ensuring, someone used the word proactive, that the St. Albert and Canada that we are so proud of, right, does not descend into something that we see on TV, which is horrible. So it is in that context that I'm availing myself to have the courage to come have this conversation.
Okay, thank you, Mawuse, and thanks for your comments. I think we mentioned that the chairperson for the St. Albert Public School Board is online. I don't know if you want to make any statement. Cheryl is.
Glenys, you're muted. Did you want me to speak, Glenys? But you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hi. Thank you. Sorry for being a bit late. I just was having trouble connecting.
No.
First of all, let me just say I'm so sorry we can't all meet face to face. I would love to have a much better way of communicating with each of you. It would be wonderful to all be in the same room and listen to each other. I would agree with Cheryl in that our role here this evening is to listen carefully to your observations and your comments. I've already been taking notes from what I've heard so far. Our board is very eager to plan a path forward around this topic, and so we will be listening carefully this evening and hopefully getting lots of ideas to help us make our plans. Thank you.
Thank you. I wonder if, this is Cheryl Dumont. I wonder if I could just speak on behalf of further education in town, because I think that's why I was invited to the panel. So I will do that. But because I'm a member of the board too, I was also asked to make sure that we had some board members here. So I was glad to do that. St. Albert Further Education does work with many, many newcomers in town because we teach English language. So we have been very, very involved with helping newcomers not only learn the English language if they don't already know it, but also to settle in town. And we work very closely with the library settlement worker, Marguerite, and there are some current plans to have us have a couple of volunteers that will help when Marguerite is not in town, because she's here on, I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we've connected with Marguerite, and we're working very closely with the city to see how we can help have a settlement worker here of sorts on a very full-time basis to help people settle in. And we also work with the community village, and particularly the community kitchen, where many, many newcomers gather every second Tuesday. So that's part of the reason that I'm here today, is to share some of the things that we've heard and to find out how we can continue to work with everyone and understand some underlying things. And I'll mention one other thing too, because we adopted a First Nations child. She's Métis, but looks very First Nations. I too am very aware of some of the comments that were made earlier, because overall she had quite a good experience, but she certainly was discriminated against here and there in local businesses. For example, if she would walk in, there would be assumptions made about her that there wouldn't have been made about her sister or her brother. So I'll stop there and do a lot of listening now. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
Thank you. Nice to have you here, and thanks for the information you just passed, because I think those information are very important. And I do know that we are doing some collaborations with you, but
yes,
we need to do more, and we need to get more people.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you.
Without much ado, I will go straight into the questions that I have. And the top questions are actually for the school board.
Before you start questioning, I'd like to say something. Hi.
Hi, sorry.
Yeah, it's Marilyn. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm not on the panel, but anyway, I've just recognized a couple of people, and I just wanted to say that I've also lived in St. Albert for many years as well, just so you know. And Glennis, I'm not sure if you recognize me. You were once our principal at one of the schools here, our family, because we've been here for many years as well too, right? Since the 90s, and we've raised 3 kids here, and have always been here. And our experience in St. Albert, it has been generally very positive. A few little issues along the way, because of course with me, I just wanted to say that I'm part of the African and African Descendants Friendship Club, but I'm not, like the foregone speaker said, I don't even know what tribe we would belong to, because it goes back too far. But what I can say, I would identify myself as an African Caribbean Canadian, if that makes any sense. And so my spouse is Canadian, and so our children, of course, would be considered to be mulattoes, right? So when you see them, you're not quite sure who they are, what they are, that type of thing. It's been very, very, very interesting. And as I'm listening to the foregone speakers and recognizing some of you who I've had some, interactions with along the way, it just kind of brings back a few memories. So I just thought I wanted to jump in with that because we're not all here from Africa. Some of us are from other countries of the world, but absolutely our experiences are shared, and just so that we can get that out there as well. So thank you for that, for allowing me to speak.
No problem. You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome too. Thank you.
Thank you. So I would go straight into the question, and it will be to the school board. And like I said, once the school board members speak, we can, any of those on the panel are allowed to contribute to it. And we need, because we have lots of questions and we have limited time, I'm looking at, if possible, allow maximum of 5 minutes for the discussion on each question so that we can get, but depending on how we go and where we land as we go on. So the first question I have is for the school board, and this is some bits of practical things that some parents have over the years faced. They have situations, the question is that there have been situations where the schools pick on Black kids and ask them questions about things that are happening at home in terms of discipline, in terms of what kind of food they eat, and whether it is healthy. Question is there a way the school board can work to let that be stopped? Because there are different ways of bringing up kids. Of course, we don't want kids to be abused. We don't want, even both at home or anywhere, we don't want people to go over the board with, but the kids themselves feel kind of insecure, at least the ones that I've brought up, the kids feel insecure that they are being singled out, which might not be, and we are not saying it is, we're just bringing this up so that we can talk about it. So is there a school board policy, or is there something the school board can do to get that going? So Glenn, I would, if you don't mind starting, and then we would get others to contribute as necessary.
You're muted.
Sorry, let me unmute you. And I would just suggest that let me allow you to unmute yourself, Glenn. Okay, try to unmute yourself. You should be good now.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, please.
Yes, the message I got was that
Sorry, if you don't mind, can I ask all the panel members to unmute themselves so that you don't have to go back and forth? Unless there's noise where you are, but otherwise, please just unmute yourself. And by the way, Glenn, I like where you are. I wish I can be there.
I was just looking at that. I've been playing around with backgrounds because my office is so untidy and messy. So I'm pretending I'm in some tropical place, but I'm not. I'm right here in St. Albert on Lockhart Drive.
Okay, so I don't know if you had my question.
Yes, I do. I do have your questions.
Okay.
This is certainly something that I will take back to our board. We do have a policy around safe and caring and welcoming environments in our school, and we also have policies around supporting families who need help. And so I guess we need to work very hard at making sure that we can identify need wherever it exists and help to support that need. But at the same time, we need to make sure that everyone feels safe and welcomed in our schools. So I've written that question down, and we'll certainly take it to our administrators to discuss. Joe, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would echo your comments that there certainly is a policy around safe and caring schools. I'm a little intrigued about children being asked what they eat and what they don't eat. And the only thing I can think of, there was a nutrition policy, if you will, put in place last year when the provincial government actually granted nutrition dollars to the school divisions. And that was to make sure that kids were getting healthy food, healthy snacks to eat. Each school treats the grant a little bit differently. And we do have a Greater St. Albert Catholic Schools also involves the communities of Morinville and Legal. And a lot of the grant money was filtered that way so that because a lot of those children were coming to school without breakfast. So I'm hoping that if the children were being asked about what they ate and was it healthy and so on, that they were being asked because maybe the teacher recognized that they didn't have healthy snacks or something like that. And I hope that there certainly was nothing intended otherwise from that, but I will check, I will ask. Discipline issues at home as well is a little bit confusing, and I don't know if questions like that would come from teachers or if it might come from school counselors who might recognize something amiss with a child, and so just probing a little bit further. But certainly being a welcoming and caring environment, that's what we're looking for from all of our staff.
Okay, so I would add to that comment, and while I am not sure this is something that has happened in the school board in St. Albert, I know for sure that in Edmonton there has been situations where the social workers have been called in on a parent because a kid got hurt, which in this case was a fall. It was actually not anything that the parent did, but the kid fell, and the school did not even bother to call the parents first. And they went ahead and they called the social workers, and then it became a very big thing and all that. So that's an example that I have. I wasn't the one who asked the question, but I am aware that there's something like that. So that question stemmed from that point of view, where because a kid, and maybe rightly so, maybe not rightly so, some of us grew up with being whipped, and whipped with canes and sticks, and it is assumed that that is what everybody does, which is not completely true. So the issue was that the school board should look into that, like we said, and I'm glad that's the response from both of you. If there are things like that, we need things to be taken care of. So the other question, which just so that and I will ask the school board one before I move to another question because I don't want. By the way, is there any other member of the panel that has a point or something to say about what we're talking about? In the absence of anybody talking about it, I would move on to the next question. And I have lived in St. Albert going to almost 12 years. And I remember that when I moved, there weren't a lot of us. But in recent times, there has been a lot of Black people in St. Albert. And the number is still increasing. So the next question is that, is the school board looking at engaging more Black teachers and other support workers? So
I can respond first if Glennis, if you're still muted. We would certainly engage a teacher. It wouldn't be based on color, or it would be based on qualifications. And then if people applied and if we were looking for an English teacher and a person of color had those credentials, they would be hired by our division.
Thank you. That's a good response. Thank you. Glenn, you're still on mute. Sorry, okay, go ahead and unmute yourself and talk.
Thank you. For some reason, it tells me that the host isn't allowing me to unmute, but now it is.
True, and that's why I said all the panel people should not unmute.
Okay.
Right?
I would agree with Joe. I think that I've made a note here, and we will speak with have a meeting with our human resources department and talk about the kind of diversity in our teaching and our support staff population. I know that there are some special ways of recruiting when we're looking for really specialized teachers. We can go to different job fairs, different colleges, different places where graduates and pools of applicants exist to look for appropriate applicants. So we'll definitely have a conversation with our human resources department. Cheryl, do you have anything to add there?
Thank you, Glennis. I do. A couple of things. First of all, I think it's important for you to know that as a school board, just last month, we have put the conversation on our table as a board to talk about systemic racism and unconscious bias, you know, and largely because of the conversation that's been happening over the last little while. We wanted to reflect on our policies and the way we do things, and that's why I think it's very important to be involved with a panel like this, because as we listen, we'll learn and we'll bring that information back to our board table. So that had already been planned. Then we were invited here, which is wonderful. The second thing is that I have heard, and I would invite anyone to comment, that it is important to have teachers of different race in front of our kids, not just for our Black and our brown kids, but also for our white kids to see, you know, the success stories, etc. So having heard that, I wondered if somebody could help me know like what your feelings are there as well.
Okay, so the floor is open. Councillor Watkins or Mayor, sorry, I meant MP Cooper and Mawuse, any other panel, if you have something to say, please go ahead.
I think Marilyn's trying to unmute to say something there. Just while waiting for them, I couldn't agree more with Cheryl. I think having a person of color in the front of a predominantly classroom full of white children is as important to both kids, so that they can see that a person of color can be very successful.
Okay, that's a very good point. I would say
thank you. Sorry, someone was going to go before me. I did have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I think up-leveling this to me goes to diversity and inclusion. In the corporate world, it is a well-established fact that companies that drive a lot of diversity and inclusion build trust within the organizations, and as a result, go ahead to solve extremely well for employees, you know, customers and shareholders. It's no different from, let's say, you know, a school situation. I don't claim to be an expert, but I can only imagine that the more diversity and inclusion we have in the school system, that again, I'll always keep going back to let's build stronger communities, the stronger communities that we will build. Mm-hmm. True. Is it Joe? Really like your comment, because often we come to this conversation from a lens of, hey, let's have quote unquote Black and brown kids see people like us as teachers. But the truth is, yes, you also want to see white kids seeing the success stories as well. So, you know, I think that was a really, really nice ad.
Right, right.
I agree.
Yeah.
One of the very, sorry, Marilyn, I just want to, while the thought's fresh in my mind, back to you, one of the very frustrating factors, I'm sure, for for anyone that immigrates to Canada, could be a doctor in their country of origin, and they get to Canada and their qualifications don't measure up, and consequently they have to spend several more years training. And I think that systemically Canada has to look at that and look at the background and the training. If you were a doctor in a country in Africa or in the Middle East and you came to Canada, how come you can't be a doctor here? And so consequently, we have a lot of people who choose Canada as their country, and they end up working at a much lesser job than they really are qualified to work at.
Right. Okay. I guess, are you waiting for me to say something?
I was going to say something. I think it's key that we have diversity in the school system. And I think that the teachers need some sensitivity training too. And because my kids people were always asking them, were they different? And like I said, I'm like 5th generation Canadian. So my kids were more Canadian than anything else. And they weren't any different. They just want to be the same. Kids just want to be the same. They don't want to be pointed out as being different. They don't want to say, oh, Johnny, what do you eat at home as opposed to the other kid. They just want to try to fit in. Right. And it's hard enough to fit in when you're a different color and 99% of the people are white and you're the one black kid in the class. It's you kind of stick out to start off with, and people always think you're different, but you're exactly the same. You're just a different color, or you may have a different accent. And I think that's where the sensitivity training needs to come in. We'll have to be aware of that and made more aware of that there's really no difference. And like I say, that comes with seeing more black people in the school system and seeing more black people that are a success. And I say most of the racism that I've encountered was really out of ignorance. And once you educate somebody about it, then about the things, then they're a lot more aware and they're a lot more perceptive. But they're really it's really just a lack of knowing, thinking you really are different, maybe thinking you do eat something different for dinner. Like I said, my family's been here since 1840, and I still get asked where I'm from. And I say Windsor, Ontario. And they say, well, what about your dad? And I say Windsor, Ontario. And they go, what about your grandpa? And I Windsor. And I just keep going back and back and back, right? So I mean, kids don't want to feel different. They want to all feel the same in class. And like I said, I've been in this town 20 years too, and I raised all my kids in the school, and they just wanted to fit in. That's all they wanted to do. They didn't want to be separate.
Okay.
Marilyn.
Oh, I was waiting for the chair to say something. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm saying that I kind of lost my thought a little bit, but I'm agreeing because, of course, I've been here as long as the rest of you have, and the kids went to school here right from preschool, daycare, all the way up to grade 12 and graduated to university. So some of these things I can personally speak to. And I did put a comment up here to say that at lunchtime, I do know that working even as a lunch hour supervisor in the school, most of the time what you do see are sandwiches. So if a student or a little child brings a hot lunch and it's not your typical hot lunch, it's not pizza, it might be rice and it might be meat, then it looks different, it smells different. So of course there's curiosity there, right? But if the adult in the class, like the foregone speaker said, is sensitive and and sort of puts it in a positive light for the group, then of course it's really helpful. So I don't necessarily know that it's racism, it's ignorance, maybe because it's unknown. I know the school at one point, Glennis, if you remember, you did have a teacher there that was from, I think it was either India or Pakistan, and she was absolutely wonderful. And because she was dark, she was very bright, she was a little older lady, but it was just really nice to see, and to see how parents, and if I can say it like this, white parents would, gravitate to her and to what she had to offer and what she brought to the classroom. It just made for a wonderful community classroom experience, right? So I'm talking very grassroots here because I grew up here with my children, so to speak, because I was a very young mom at the time, and and lived through all of these. And my children no longer live here, but I still live here. I have a grandson that is here too. But So it's just a little bit of ignorance, right? So if we can maybe tweak that a little bit, because St. Albert is a wonderful place, I think that we can build a bridge to help us to deal with some of the things that we don't want to see happen here that may have happened in other places. Thank you.
May I say something, please? I need to leave shortly. I'm on call. I'm Stanley Haroon from the school board, and I listened with interest to all that was said. And I like to confirm what my fellow trustees from both boards have been saying. It is a great community, and our board specifically has a very strong anti-discrimination policy. My kids grow up here from K to 12, and not once that I heard that any of their fellow students from a different culture, different color, have had any difficulties. I'm proud of this community. I'm proud of what we do. I'm proud of what I heard. But are we perfect? No, we're not. And as my fellow trustees said, we'll take your questions and your concerns back to the table, to the board table, and if we can improve, and I think we can, we will. So I thank you very much, and good luck with the rest of your conference. Goodbye.
Cheryl has her hand up.
I got my hand up too, actually.
Oh.
Well, I just wanted to quickly say that I like the idea of sensitivity training. I know that I've written that down, and we'll certainly take a look at that as a board, and as a nonprofit as well, because I really am a firm believer that once we know better, we do better. And I think that's some of the important reasons for sensitivity training. So thank you for, I think it was Ray that mentioned that.
Councillor Ray, you can unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Yeah,
okay.
I have to say too that, like, I take a little bit of offense to what Stanley said. He said, you know, he's raised all his kids here, and not once has he heard anything, his kids say anything about having any problem with any kid of color. Because, well, I've had to deal with my kids coming home crying about it, and my kids getting beat and punched on the bus about it, and getting called names at school. So, like, I take a little bit of offense to that, because he says he's not once has he heard that. So it does happen. Maybe he hasn't heard it, but I've had to deal with it, and I've had to deal with crying kids dealing with it from my youngest, my middle kid to my eldest. So this is kind of the problem that we're dealing with here, is people saying it's not an issue. It is an issue in some people's minds, and it has been an issue to me, like I say, in my kids over their life, and it's been hurtful. And like I say, I take offense to that. He's a longtime member of the school board trustee, and he says not once has he heard any issue about it, and not once has his kids heard any issue. Well, his kids aren't black, and his kids aren't people of color, so he probably wouldn't hear that. So yeah, like I said, I hope the other trustees are listening to this, and not. I see Cheryl nodding her head, but I don't think that's. I think that's just the answer that we don't want to have, is somebody saying, I haven't heard of it once. I want people to say, yes, I've heard it, I accept it, I hear what you're saying, and we're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
Just like I said, my kids are long past this now. My youngest is 25, and I said, Quentin, do you want to sit in on this call? And he goes, why? Why bother? And he said, I just got trashed my whole life through high school in St. Albert. That's basically what he said. He was a little bit bitter about it, right? And he said, why bother? And I said, well, why bother is because we're trying to change things. That's why bother. So that's why I'm here, is because I'm trying to change things. And I think that's why everybody's here, because they're trying to.
I want to dovetail into the next question, which is still related to the school board, but it's not directly at the school board. And Councillor Watkins did say something related to that. The bus. There is a lot happening on the school buses. And we know, and I know that it's not the school board that owns the school buses, but is there a way that the school board can work with the bus owners to give them some training as to how to relate with especially black kids? Because I have had situations where it is not the black kids that starts the fight, but because of his reaction, which comes sometimes as being aggressive, the reports that comes back from the school is that the child was unruly or the child was aggressive. Nobody goes to the root of what really happened on the school bus that warranted the kid to react. So I would like the school board to take that up and talk about it if there's anything, or if it's a point you want to note, to talk about that there's a need to have training for the school bus drivers so that they know to get to the facts and not give one-sided report, because the principals and the teachers, what they get is what they do, and they do their investigations, but sometimes some kids are not able to talk. Some kids would not be able to react and say, this is what happened, this is what he did to me, and this is what happened. So anyway, that's something that I would leave also to the school board. So Joe, you want to go first, or is it Cheryl, or?
Well, I can tell you that one of our projects over the past couple of years has to be to add additional cameras to the school buses for any number of reasons. It started with the bullying problem that kids face on the buses. I see it as an excellent tool that could be used in situations like this. If there was some type of trouble on the bus, or if there were some racist comments or fights breaking out or that kind of thing, we would have video of it for the individuals, so it could be proved who started what. And of course, those things cost money. As you know, the provincial government has seen fit to slash school board budgets, but we still continue at every opportunity to add cameras. And the kids don't even know the cameras are on the buses. So don't tell them. But ideally, we would have one on every bus.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a good one. So again, to me, the whole conversation is, there's a lot of Black people on this screen right now, but it's still about community. Even these cameras are also about white kids.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very much so.
It's not Black kids. It's brown kids, tall kids, short kids. It's about the community, right? And so to me, I'll keep pushing us towards the community, right? Things we do to strengthen the community. That's what to me is of paramount interest.
Just by organizing this event and getting the conversation started, we have made a giant first step.
Mm-hmm. What is the cost of cameras on buses? Because that seems like a really good idea that would help with bullying, everything on buses. Because a lot of stuff goes on buses, and my kids have complained about it for the year. Other stuff too, like nonsense. So what is the cost for that?
It's between 12 and 15,000
per bus.
Per bus.
Per bus.
Wow.
Can we have a do-it-yourself solution, or just kidding?
Well, you know, when you see what's, I hate to bring up the United States because they're such a terrible example, but cell phones seem to be working wonders for bringing people around to finding out what's going on. So maybe we could teach the kids to use their cell phones a little bit better.
So we're talking about, is it okay to speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, we're talking about wanting to build stronger communities, and that's why I'm here as well too, right? And I'm agreeing. And one of the things that I had put forward as a question, which I think was answered, that, you know, in the curriculum, you know, is there room, is there a place where you can talk about, you know, I am unique, I'm different, and that would be a place where you would include people of all nations, nationalities, and just talk about that. Because, I mean, Canada continues to invite other peoples from countries to come here. And certainly some of those people are going to end up in St. Albert, right? So if that's the case looking forward then, and we're trying to build communities right across our whole country, i.e. St. Albert, that to me anyway would be an awesome place to put that into social studies, where you're talking about people and culture and customs and the embracing of all of these things, right? And then, you know, the topics then break down into nutrition and what people eat and what you may happen to see that might be similar, what you might happen to see, you know, that is different. Those kind of discussions, I'm thinking would be so valuable, you know, in a curriculum. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And
Marilyn, that's absolutely an incredible idea. If just the experience that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years with the recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission with our First Nations. And so meetings begin now with the recognition of treaty lands and things like that. And then added to the curriculum are little bits and pieces of First Nations history. Because let's face it, the history books were written by the colonizers.
That's right.
And so they did not give the perspective from the First Nations. But I do know that, and I don't know at what grade level it is, but I do remember both of my sons having to do their family history and then presenting it to the rest of the class. So, you know, talking about, you know, where dad came from and where grandpa and far back as you could take it, and then you presented it to the class. And I think it was at the junior high level. I certainly hope it was, because to me that would probably be a better place to start. They probably have a little more comfort talking about themselves.
Yes.
But just presenting that to the rest of the class, and particularly if we had a new immigrant in that class who could talk about where his family had come from, and like you said, talk about the type of food that they like to eat, and share that. Bring a sample to the classroom. You know, it's so that today at lunch, we're not all going to have a peanut butter sandwich. We're all going to have this meal, which is a traditional lunch meal for my family. That's the kind of education that's going to break down those walls and break down those barriers, so that kids are exposed to other cultures in the real world.
That's good. And we'll follow up.
I would mention that at our high school, Paul Kane, for many, many years, I've been on the board for 10 years now, and it started long before me. There was a Taste of Africa, there still is, that goes on. And the fundraising that's done at Paul Kane, much of that money goes to Africa, and there's big learning, you know, around that fundraising and the time that the kids gather together to eat the different foods. And it has grown from just African food now to food from all over. And it's quite exciting to attend. You know, so I just mentioned that as one thing that I believe was sort of student-led and then you know, teacher-driven as well. Many years ago, that still carried on and does help many understand a little bit better about different cultures, etc. But much more of that needs to be done. But it's just an example that I thought I'd bring up.
Okay, Mayor, you have something for us?
Well, I love this conversation. First of all, Taste of Africa, you know, we saw it in February, and I can't wait for the next one because I do love the food. But with the school bus question, like this is, I mean, I've been letting the conversation just flow because it is really about the school boards right now. But, you know, we have another transit system in St. Albert, and that's the public transit system. And so I'd be curious if anyone on the panel or anyone listening has any anecdotal observations about how the St. Albert Public School or the St. Albert Public bus drivers are with the public. We don't employ those bus drivers. That's a contract we have with Diversified, but absolutely, I would need to know if those kind of experiences that the kids are seeing on the yellow school buses are happening on St. Albert Transit. So I was just kind of curious about that. I mean, sensitivity training goes far and beyond just the school teachers. It goes to everyone who's facing the public. I think it should be mandatory. And I don't know if there's going to be a question about city staff, but that has been a priority for this council. Ray can attest to that. But just curious about the St. Albert Transit, how that experience is.
Okay, that's a very good point, Mayor. Thanks for that, because it affects us. So Glenn,
Thank you. I too am interested in the use of public transit as well as our own busing, because I would agree with Ray and the other observations that have been made about the importance of busing. We know that for kids that begins their day. The ride to and from school is a huge part of their educational experience, and we need to work very hard to make those experiences that start their day and finish their day as positive as possible. And I've made a note about the cameras we'll look into further. I need to get some more data on the number of cameras, the number of buses that have cameras and don't. But you need to understand that school bus driving is a very difficult recruitment. We contract our buses from busing companies, and they have difficulty recruiting bus drivers. And of course, the first qualification has to be safe bus driving. And so their first focus has to be on the safety of kids on board. Their ability to manage student behavior is not their first criteria for being hired. But we do need to work with those bus drivers to help them facilitate student behavior on buses. At the same time, making sure that their first focus is on the safety of kids. So bus driving is a big challenge for us. And you need to know, all of you as parents, that it is a very big priority for us, and we are working very hard to try and have those bus drivers as good as they possibly can be at facilitating good student behavior and at the same time keeping your kids safe.
Thank you. Michael Cooper, you have anything for us?
Yeah, well, I've, like Cathy, been largely listening in, because all of the questions have been really directed around schooling. And one point I will just make, just on I know Ray Watkins has noted a few times about his kids being bullied over the years. I've grown up in St. Albert, and obviously I didn't experience that, but I'm not a visible minority. But I can tell you, one of my colleagues, Tim Uckle, who represents Edmonton Mill Woods, he told me that one of his children, who was 6 years old in grade 1, went to school and was told by someone that they could no longer be friends with him. And he went back to Tim, his dad, to try to understand why. So, I mean, there's all kinds of examples of that, and it's just heartbreaking to hear about things like that are real, that are happening every day. I don't, you know, at the end of the day, we're never going to completely conquer racism any more than we're going to conquer murder or crime or any number of bad behaviors, bad attitudes, and just bad evil, really, when you break it down to what the root of the problem is. But what is so important is to have a conversation, to have dialogue. And that's why I really have found it valuable just to listen to some of the experiences that some of the participants have relayed, because they're not something that I would necessarily see. And if I don't see it, then it's really tough to understand, to have it put in a day-to-day context. And so that's important. And I think it's important when we have these discussions, as we've been having tonight, we keep it respect, because I think vast majority of people, if they have maybe the wrong attitude or they say the wrong thing, most people don't intend to do that. They don't intend to hurt other people. I mean, some people do, but most people don't. And sometimes reaching out to them, saying, you maybe think about it this way, or you could have said it differently, or maybe you don't realize, but you're really deeply upsetting someone because of whatever, that there's a good chance that that person will take a step back and say, you know what, I could have done better. I should have thought about that, as opposed to necessarily pointing the finger all the time at people. So I think respect on all sides is really the key to building a better, stronger, and interconnected community in which we can share and better understand each other in all of our day-to-day experiences.
Thank you. I see Juliet has been trying to talk to you.
I hope, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay, I just wanted to speak to the public transportation. I did not send my son to his feeder school, so he needed to take a bus to get there. And after I registered, I find out it's actually 3 buses for him to get there. So he was quite nervous about getting on the bus, and the bus drivers were not very patient with giving him help is the first problem. And then as he got used to taking the bus, there was a bully on the bus who was telling him that he's getting ready for high school and would keep punching him in his private parts. And I phoned the supervisor, and the supervisor came on the bus, and the child got suspended for one week. And then this whole thing happened again. The bus drivers are not trained to deal with his behavior on the bus, and part of that's part. And she contacted the student's school directly, and it helped a little bit, but the problem still existed. If there's a problem on the way to school or from school, which the school is supposed to be responsible for the child, then the child could be consequenced by the school, but that didn't seem to really happen.
Okay, thank you very
St.
much.
Albert.
Thank you.
So his experience on transportation, but I don't think it's going to happen. So that was the experience. So he was bullied.
Okay, noted. I see that
His school experience, on the other hand, has been very good.
okay, at least that's a plus for the school board.
He's had great teachers.
There's been a lot of
friends.
positive things
Yes.
happening in our schools, believe me.
Yeah.
And they are doing, the teachers are doing very well, the students.
Yeah, no, his schooling in St. Albert has been very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has been. Okay, so just to move on because of time, and I have a couple of questions that I have, but I've had it been answered, and that is introducing settlement programs for new system into the school system. I mean, new immigrants into the school system. Because of where some of these kids are coming from, and they are understanding. Some of them are we're already in school. The school system is completely different. Does the school board has any program or plans to bring in a settlement system into the school system so that the kids can easily get into school? And what we're talking about is like having a program settlement officer or someone. It could be a voluntary position. It could be somebody just making sure that we identify the new kids that are come into St. Albert and they are starting school, and somebody from the system, like maybe from the society, the Africans and African Descendants, is able to talk to these kids and their parents to let them understand how things are. I know that even though I came when my kids were very small, I still struggled. We came when my eldest was 4 years, but the system was completely different for us when we came, because at the age of 4, believe me, they already know the multiplication table up to like 4, the multipliers of 4 and 5. But the school system here is good, but they have to get into it gradually because, so does the school board has any plans like that? And Mayor, when the school board answers that question, I want to come to the city. Does the city has a settlement program? Do we have something that can help people settle into the community? Particularly, like somebody said earlier, Canada's team invites people to come here and settle. So
Yeah.
that,
So before they answer, I want to just add to your comment, because my daughter is a social worker in the Edmonton Public School Board system, and in the school system there, they have what they call success coaches. So success coaches are sometimes officially trained social workers or somebody in that area, but like he's saying, you know, their job is to work with families, and so it can be families on a very broad scale, or it can be families narrow, you know, just to try to integrate them into the school system, so that they basically, if you want to say, fit in, right? And they have an understanding, or if they're having any type of problems, they work with these, and they do work with them one-on-one. And especially over the COVID, they've been doing quite a lot of work, you know, in that area. So, you know, just as a parent or a grandparent now in this St. Albert arena for schools, it's, to me, it would be, I don't know, a consideration if we did have, I know they call them success coaches, and that whole name is a kind of a psychological name to sort of promote success, right? So you call them success coaches. So they're setting the kids up with their families to be able to do well.
Can I begin the conversation on this?
yes, please, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm certainly very interested in taking this topic to our board table and talking to our superintendent about it. We definitely have a real focus in much of the auxiliary supports for students in terms of counseling. This is what I'm hearing from you is a suggestion for something that's fairly targeted in terms of counseling support. And so definitely we'll take a look at the possibilities of this. We have, as Joe has just mentioned, our district's been very focused in the last 5 or 6 years on adding some additional supports for our First Nations, Métis and Inuit students. And I think this kind of mental health support can be expanded to meet all kinds of needs. So I'm hearing this idea of a settlement program officer as another possibility in that sort of matrix of supports for students. Cheryl, do you want anything from our school district?
Yes, you know, what I will add is that I know for my Métis daughter, and I have seen it with other students because I was quite involved with the schools when she was going to school, is that our principals are very, very sensitive to newcomers, as well as the teachers that are teaching our kids, and they really do go out of their way to make sure that the child feels comfortable, that they're introduced to friends, a group of friends that will, you know, take them around and help them learn about the layout of the school, etc. When you get into the high school, it's a little different, but what's happened there, and I can speak to Paul Kane maybe a little bit better, but I think Belrose probably does the same thing. That you know, they have vice principals that deal will have the whole of grade 10, and then one of the other ones will have grade 11, and then the principal would have grade 12, and they're very much like success coaches for that cohort of kids as they're going through that year, and very supportive, making sure they're getting the credits that they need, that they're getting along, if they need counseling, if, you know, friendship problems, that kind of thing, that they're getting it. So I just wanted to mention that our principals and our teachers are very sensitive to that. And I do know that our principal, when Summer first came into school, asked me if there was anything that the school could do culturally to help Summer sort of settle in, because she was an only Métis child in this particular classroom. So you know, I've experienced it myself, and I've seen it helpful for others. So as somebody else said, are we always perfect? No, but I do know that our principals and our teachers really care, and they try very, very hard. But like Glennis, I'm very interested in the settlement workers, and I've had more experience with it now because of St. Albert Further Education, so the adult education. For example, when newcomers are coming to town and they don't speak English and they're going to high school or even junior high school, often because they're trying to settle in so many ways, socially, as well as with the curriculum, and just a whole brand new situation. Often they're supporting family members at home that don't speak English very well either. You know, so in those particular cases, some schools have reached out to us, and as a result, we have permission to help with English language training for 16 and 17-year-olds, where we normally wouldn't do that to an 18-year-old. And my other example would be the schools are now reaching out to us from a junior high level to say, what can you do? And we kept saying no, no, no. And finally, about the 7th time, we said, we have to do something here to support the homework for the individuals that are learning English at the junior high level. You know, so we are just just trying to get a grant so that we can do that kind of work after school for kids in that area. So yeah, but lots of work going on that we don't know about. And so we're very, very interested. We are the group that brought up to City the fact that we had no formal settlement place here in the city. So I know we've been working with Leanne McMillan at the city level to try to do what we can without it being a bricks and mortar kind of place, which becomes very expensive. But if we can make a list of all of the places in town, like the Family Resource Center, the community village, ourselves, our schools, etc., who can do what to support families when they come in to St. Albert. And of course, the African Friendship Society is certainly a big part of that. And recently, I have made touch with the Filipino community. And again, they're very interested in that settlement type work that we need to be doing together as a community, so that we can be open and caring and welcoming. That the more open, caring, and welcoming we are as a city, as a society, I think that from that top, you know, goes down to meet where the schools are coming up to do the same kind of work. We just all need to be part of it.
Okay, Mayor Cathy, I'm sure you have something to say to this, and
I can let my dog out while you do that.
And I do have other questions for you, so we'll
okay.
go straight into that.
Okay, I'll go. And Cheryl, can you still hear me, Cheryl?
Yes, I just had to let the dog.
I just want to tell you, I was at Deluxe Burger about a week or so ago with Terry Sotart, and Summer was there. So she was great. It was nice to see her.
Well, thank you. She did tell me that she met you, Cathy.
So I just wanted to talk a little bit about what the city is doing, because it just totally leaps. It's a really good transition from what Cheryl just talked about. So we actually do have a Welcome to St. Albert for Newcomers to Canada help. And it does exactly what Cheryl was just talking to. It's a committee. It's a group of St. Albert agencies and churches who value inclusion. Newcomers are asked what information was needed when they first arrived in our community, and we created a brochure from all their feedback. And so, you know, there's information on safety. So the committee involves the Christ Community Church, the City of St. Albert Family and Community Support Services, Community Information Volunteer Center, the Grace Family Church. Actually, there's a number of churches. There's Salvation, Catholic Parish. The food bank is on there. Public Library is a huge resource. The United Church, the Visitors Welcome Center, Stars Literacy. So there's a lot of supports. I think the library honestly does probably one of the better jobs. So they have settlement services programs located right in our public library. So if you were to walk in there and you were asked for the settlement practitioner, they would be able to help you with anything. But there's lots of resources there on banking, immigration, employment, you know, help with the language, health and medical. There's a ton. I can't even go into how much there is there. So The other thing that we did, actually I shouldn't say we, the city did not do this at all, but a couple years ago when the Syrian refugee crisis was happening, the United Church really stepped forward and sponsored quite a few residents to come to St. Albert. St. Albert was not designated as a refugee settlement area, but we have welcomed as many as we can. So, and the last thing I was going to say on this topic about how to welcome newcomers is, you know, a year ago I would not have had the advice and the context that I have sitting in front of me right now. And so this group, African and Descendants of Africa, would be almost one of my first places to I would refer anyone to talk to you people, because I think that's probably why you established yourself, is to be there as a resource, you know, for people who, like Mawuse, who's been here for years, to those who just moved here. So I think in a partnership between you and the city and all those agencies I just listed, I think we have a fairly good, robust resource system in St. Albert. But if there's other suggestions of what we could do more, we're always open.
Thank you. And we would definitely look at how to become part of the welcome wagon.
Okay, yep.
So that we can be. And so the question to you, and this is just Oliver Twist, because we know you've done a lot for us. Are there a way we can get more Blacks into the city, to the city employment? We know the city is the major employer of labor, and we do have a lot of qualified people. Is there anything like diversification, diversity, and how does it work to get our people in there?
I'm gonna answer very similar to what I think it was Joe who had said when they're hiring teachers. I think we look for qualifications.
Yeah.
Above all else, we do have an inclusive hiring policy, but it honestly doesn't talk to color and diversity. It's actually about physical disabilities and mental disabilities, to make sure that cohort of our population has opportunities. But I'm going to ask you the question back. You know, how does it look when you're preferentially hiring based on color, whether it be white or black? Or should we really honestly be just looking for the best qualifications? And so that's a conversation I would love to have around this table. And I bet you Ray has something to add to that.
We should emphasize qualification, without a doubt.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Excuse me. Yeah. Okay.
I just opened a can of worms.
No. I actually like the good exchange of different views, and sincerely, if we are going to live in a post-racial world, or whatever that means, qualification and merit has to be front and center, regardless of race or color or whatever, or other qualifiers. This is because as we walk this fine line, we have to be very, very careful, because in trying to address certain maybe historical or perception in terms of prejudice, we should not disenfranchise the other group as well, because it may lead to unintended consequences. And that's the more reason why we should be careful of reverse racism in trying to address other underlying societal issues.
Okay, so let me paraphrase here. The question should be, do we have equal employment opportunity? I don't want us to, the mayor has asked a very good question, and I think we are on track. So
yes, and I just want to quickly answer it, and I know time is very precious. I appreciate that. I agree with the mayor that merit has to be front and center, and every other thing will follow. Thank you.
If I could push on that just a little bit.
Can I speak to this, please? I wanted to.
Sure, go ahead.
Thanks. It was kind of in response to what Joe said and what the mayor also said, which is about prioritizing qualification, which I absolutely agree with in any organization, all right? But sometimes diversification goes beyond the qualification in the sense that I did see a series of Marilyn. It's a comedy series. And then, of course, it was said in a joking form, but there was an advertising company and they took a black boy, he wore a t-shirt and it said Funky Monkey, and they thought it was funny, and they obviously didn't think there was anything wrong with it. And then he came and confronted them and said, oh, he said, don't you have any advisors on your board? And then he looked and he saw all of them were white and they were totally clueless, right? The point is, just like Councillor Watkins said, you're not black, you cannot feel some of these things and you're not sensitive to them. Mm-hmm. I came from Nigeria a year ago and I think I've done quite well for myself settling in and, I get involved. I'm not somebody to be sensitive about race and all that stuff. I completely ignore things like that. I would argue with you intellectually and I'll take you on that, So I really don't, I'm not a sensitive person in that sense. But there's a place for diversity in terms of sensitivity and we need to recognize that, just the way we have some inclusion for disabilities. And I understand that we may not be able to have that in every sort of, in every sort of forum, right? It's not practical, but the school board is a very important. All right. My brother is in the US and he has a little son and he's worried about, he doesn't want to take his son to a very white school. I said, my son is the only white in his class. In the entire school, there are probably 3 or 4 whites. And I don't make it a big deal. I don't make him see color. He's like, yeah, Canada is a bit different. I said, well, maybe, but. So the point is, the school is where, you have children that are growing, they're getting formed, they are affected by so many things. It is so important to have a level of diversity. I don't know how diverse the school board is. I think there needs to be some level of diversity there. If it means to support a teacher, right, it may seem preferential. And I get the question, is it fair? Sometimes it might not be, but because you need a unique skill from that individual, you might need to provide a little bit of support. You might need to slightly reduce the qualification. So if that qualification was maybe a 90%, I won't ask you to go for a 60 or a 50. But if that person that fits that position is an 88%, I don't see why not. Because some of these things are done even in these Ivy League schools. There's a portion specifically left for diversity. Otherwise, we'll continue to have these conversations and people will not understand. And it seems people are just making noise or you have the conversation and a year goes by, everybody moves on. It's an ongoing thing. And so when you have somebody that is different amongst you, they will consciously teach you, they will train you, and you can have sensitivity training all you want. It doesn't become a part of you if you are not, continuously trained. You get the point. So yeah. I really think it's a conversation we need to have. I'm not saying to disenfranchise anyone, but the point is we just need to consider that because it's a really big issue. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Watkins.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I had a whole different thing about getting in a job. My mom was a very strong black lady, and she was always tell me, Ray, you got to be better. You got to be better. And I'm not trying to say this against white. She goes, you got to be better than the white man, because if you're put up against that person in a job interview, they're going to pick the white person. They're not going to pick you. So you have to be better. That's what my mom always told me. So she always made me strive to be better and to better myself, not just be better than the white man, just be better than everybody, just to try to be the best you can be. And I think that starts with education. So we have to make sure that Black people get an education and stay in school and are qualified to apply for these positions. And I don't think we're asking for a handout. We're just asking for an equal playing field. Mm-hmm. So that when I come in and I apply and I throw down my resume and somebody else throws down their resume, they don't see color, they see qualifications. And they're going to give me a chance. And they don't look and they see if I've got a funny last name or I got a funny first name. And they go, uh-oh, I'm not going to deal with that guy. They just look at the qualifications. But I think that's what we have to do. We have to stay and educate ourselves and stay educated and win those competitions. I don't want to be given a job because of my color. I want to win the job because I'm the most qualified. And that's just how I feel about it. So like, and I get that we have to get more people of color in those positions, but it's just like politics, right? Like how many people of color ran for office in St. Albert? 2. Ofoma and me, that was it. So I mean, you just got to put your foot forward more and get out there more. And that's just my point on it.
Okay, thank you.
It's a good point, Ray, because I always hate the conversation about getting more women in politics. Because I say to people, vote for me because I'm the best qualified, not because I'm a woman. And sometimes you doubt your own abilities. You know, I remember door knocking and somebody said, oh, I'm going to vote for you. You're pretty. And that's not why, you know, that's horrible.
See, Cathy, and now I say we got to get more blacks in politics. We already got enough women. There's 4 women on council.
Women power.
We got more women on council than men. We got women all over the place. We got to get some more people of color in politics and in these jobs and these positions. You know, I think the women have done a great job.
But I'm saying it makes you doubt your worth sometimes if you don't know why you were chosen.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I have one, that's a good conversation, thank you, and I'm glad where we landed it. I have another question that talks about adding Black history as well as First Nations culture as it relates to Canada to the school curriculum. Is there something the school board is looking at we know there's, Councillor Watkins just talked of his family. How many of my kids know that there was a family like that? So, and even the First Nation, how much of it do the culture? There are lots of culture that these people have. Is there any plan by the school board? I don't know if the school board members are still on. Is there?
Yeah, we're still here.
We're here.
So Joe, you want to take a shot before?
Well, again, this would have to be at the local level because, as you know, the province sets the curriculum.
Okay.
And it takes years to get them to make a change. The previous government had worked on it for about 4 years, and the new government comes in and throws it out and decides to rethink what the others had worked on. But there's certainly nothing preventing a particular teacher, whether it be a social studies teacher or what have you, that could take this bull by the horn and say, we're going to be talking about this particular continent as part of the curriculum. While we're there, we're going to visit these things. I know my son is a high school teacher in Edmonton, in a very diverse high school, 61 nations represented in the school. And he happens to teach social. So he said, my classes are fantastic because of the diversity of the classroom situation. So that again comes down to the individual teacher level. And certainly I think there's room for it, in both school divisions.
And the school board, is it something the school board can look into? I understand it has to be done by the teachers, but is it something the school board can put as programs?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you, when it came to our First Nations curriculum, rather than wait for the government to be where they needed to be, we took the bull by the horns and we actually introduced some curriculum at every grade level, at a level that each grade or each child could understand. So it's certainly something that I've noted down, and we'll have a discussion.
Thank you. That's excellent.
I can give you a Canadian Black history lesson if you want.
Great.
I'll come and speak at a school if you want to.
Right.
With slides and artifacts.
There we go.
And Ray, we both come from Windsor. My dad was from Windsor as well.
That's right. Joe's from my hometown.
Yeah, so is my mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
My mom lived in Windsor too when she was young. So.
Oh, there's the Windsor connection then. And I'm not going to say him, but Steve Mandel, he was from Windsor too.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Mayor, this question is for you, and it has to do with the botanical garden. Is there a possibility? I don't know if the city controls that, but I believe you do. So is there a possibility to get a space to plant African and other diversity, other things that are not really from here, and try to plant them and show how we do planting and all that in the garden?
My first thought when I knew that question was coming was, will it grow here? We have a long winter that's not very typical to the African climate.
True, very true.
We need to green this.
So here's how the botanical, we own the land, but there's a board of directors that runs and operates that. And so I'm sure they would welcome that that request. I thought that was a good one, but I think they would probably need your help. Right? You know, they might not have the gardening skills or what type of plants that would grow in a, what are we, climate number 4, which is, you know, quite cold. So I think we could try it and somehow identify it as a section of the garden that is reflecting African agriculture styles and growth. But I'm sure, and I can get you the contact information. I don't actually know it myself, but I can get it for you.
Yeah, I think they'd probably open to that. I go over there all the time and take a lot of pictures over there.
Are we talking flowers here, or are we talking food items?
Well, I would say the question was asked in a way: African farming methods, crops, and plants.
Okay, because I think we have a former counselor who teaches high school in Morinville, who actually runs an agricultural program out there that teaches farming to the high school students. And Cathy, we need to talk to him and get him involved in
Neil
this.
Neil would love it.
Yeah.
And also on the botanical gardens, if you go over there and volunteer help, they will give you a garden plot over there to grow whatever you want to grow on.
Okay, that's it.
I think it's you donate like 10 hours a year, and over as you drive in there on the right hand side, there's a fenced in area, and those are all private garden plots where they don't have trails through, and you get one of those plots if you donate your time to the society.
Okay.
And we have a former mayor on the board. I think Richard Plain is still on the board.
Dick Plain, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the other question I have here is really for the RCMP, but maybe they unfortunately could not make it because of the short time, and we would get in touch with them. What I want to do is probably give the next 10 minutes to a couple of people that have.
Yeah, just on that, I do sit on the police committee.
Oh.
As a counselor on the police committee. So if you have a question of the RCMP, you can give it to me and we can formally ask it through the police committee if you'd like.
Okay. So
just send me the question or email it to me and I'll ask it of the police committee.
Sounds good, Councillor. Thank you very much for taking that up. So I would give, for the next 10 minutes, I would kind of open it up so that we would have people with questions and people that want to make comments. But I am hoping that in 1 minute, 30 seconds, and I'm watching my clock, whoever is going to speak would be very brief and go to the point because we need the responses. I see Fiona had her hands up a while ago. I don't know if you still want to talk, Fiona.
No, my question's been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, is there any other person? And I want a show of hands, please. If you have anything to say or question to us, the next 10 minutes is for that. And if your question has already been answered, let me know.
Aline has her hand up.
I just want to come with a comment. My name is Aline. I don't live in St. Albert. My daughter comes to St. Albert School. She goes to École La Mission. I love it so much. The experience has been great. And we are hoping one time to move to St. Albert. We don't know when, but that's our goal. And
lower your taxes, then she'll come.
It's a nice place.
Yeah.
But I really want to for 2 years, so I know what I'm saying.
So I really want to comment to Cheryl, like the Cheryl comment. I say it was a great point. I have a friend of my daughter, her name, like I don't want to say her name, but she's a really best friend now. They are 7 years old. And the mom really specifically told me that she really wants the relationship to keep moving forward because she struggled because she didn't grow up with any other cultures except white people, like when she was growing up. And it was hard in her careers, even to understand, talking to other people, learning other cultures. It was hard. So she really wants to give her kids that opportunity. And when you speak to that, I was like really impressed. And that we are not doing this for just Black people or people of color, like other people of color. We are doing it even for our own white kids to learn differences. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you want to talk, Councillor, you have something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say that, you know, I really am proud of the city. I've lived here 20 years and I love it. And it's a great place to live. And, you know, like I say, I hope if you think like my comments didn't mean, that, you know, this is a bad city. It's a great city to live. I just want to make it a better city to live. And like I say, the fact that they voted me in as a visible minority just shows you what kind of people live here. And, you know, there were 27 people who ran for office and I was 5th. So, I mean, there were a lot of choices that they had out there. So I think this is a great community. And I'm really happy that we're having this discussion and that it's an open discussion. And I hope we can have more of these discussions and carry on. And, you know, I just want to tell like the Black community that I am here to help you. And if you need to reach out to me in any way, I'm really easy to find. You can come over to my house. You can get me online. You can find me at City Hall. So that's just my comments. I'm here to help you and everybody in the city. But
okay, I'm not seeing hands up. Councillor. Oh, I was looking for hands. Sorry, please use the chat room to raise up your hands because I'm not seeing everybody on the video.
I can ask a question.
Oh, sure.
Just in the interest of time, I'll jump in. It's an RCMP related question. So, and I'm going to try and frame it in a way that at least makes sense to me. And so, you know, Ray, this one's for you, since you're the rep. It's about sensitivity, right? And hate. Now, a lot of the Africans here of West African origin grew up not too far from slave castles, okay, that anchored the transatlantic slave trade. All right, so we come to North America, we come live in a place like St. Albert, and it's like, holy, whatever you want to call it, what an amazing place to live. And you live here for, in my wife's case, 35 years, in my case, 30 years. We've built homes in Ghana, sold the money, we love this country so much, repatriated all our funds here because we love this community. And then something like George Floyd happens, and then like the earlier comments are made about the things I watched on CBC that is available for everybody to watch. And believe it or not, it shakes your confidence. It makes you wonder, really? Am I being tolerated? Or am I as accepted as I think, you know, I've always thought all these years? You want to believe you are, but the truth is, and I think we've kind of dodged the point a bit in this conversation, that you, like, suddenly I feel insecure. And for me to feel insecure, that's a big deal, right? Because nothing prepared me for that. So when it comes to hate and building, like, there's no place for hate in building strong communities, none whatsoever. So if we say zero tolerance, here's a proposal. Are we willing to out these organized hate groups? I believe the RCMP knows who these people are. So that'll be my provocation. I don't want to feel insecure here.
So your question to me is,
are
there known hate groups in St. Albert, and can we out them, or you know there are and we should out them? What was it?
Are there?
Are there? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Are there? And if there are, are we willing to expose them? Right? So, like the kid who was on CBC,
out there at the end.
I see him as a relative, not as a Black man, because that's where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so the question that goes through your head is, when we have, you know, racists amongst us, are their relatives, like, do they not see the horror, right, of what it could be exacting on someone like me, who is a proud Canadian and a proud resident of St. Albert?
Well, let me
it generates fear.
Let me just say that there are a number of sections of the criminal code that deal with hate and acts of hate, and law enforcement is actively engaged every day in coming down on individuals who do engage in activities that contravene the criminal code. And so, to your point, here are tools. It's a matter of using them, and they are used.
I will ask that question of the police committee, but I think here's something you should know about the police committee. On the police committee, you have the Superintendent Robinson, she's either Métis or she's Treaty Native, Treaty First Nations. You have myself, who's a Black person, and you have the chairman, who's an openly gay man. So I think we're covering pretty much every base there, and we're trying to make sure that we know that somebody said, well, why do we need a police commission? Like the lawyers police themselves and the doctors police themselves. I goes, yes, but they don't carry guns and they can't arrest people. That's why we need a police committee, because they need an oversight, somebody else oversighting themselves. And so, yes, with that, the Floyd incident, yes, it has brought all this to the top, and I think the police are very sensitive about it. And I'll tell you that the police committee is very well aware of this. And like I said, any questions you have, that's an open committee. You can come to that committee. You can make a presentation. And like I said, the members on there are pretty open to what people have to say.
Okay.
So if there's any concerns you have about the RCMP in St. Albert, you can bring them to the police committee, or you can bring them directly to the RCMP, whichever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, we have 10 minutes to go, and the mayor and Cheryl and James have their hands up, and I just saw Cheryl's hand. But Councillor, I just want to give you one more question to take. And the question is, does the RCMP have any enlightening program that addresses racial profiling?
Okay.
Do they have any for the public? Do they have for themselves? If they do for the public, how do we know about it and how do we get into it?
Okay, so you want to know if they have a program to enlighten people on
racial profiling.
Right. See, because my kids have all said they've been pulled over way more often than their non-colored friends. Friends of color. But like I say, we have been told that there is no policy about profiling with the police, but we'll talk to the police on that. I feel fairly comfortable that they don't have a policy on trying to profile.
No, I know, I don't believe they do, but what we're saying is
enlighten
them. How do people, if for instance, I feel like I'm being profiled by a policeman, what should I do? What can I do at that point in time? That's what we mean by enlightenment program. Is there something that the police is putting out there to say, okay, we know there might be, people say there might be, what can you do in case it happens to you? And those are programs that can come. So Mayor, if you want to go ahead.
I'll just add to what you just talking about. The police committee has a public complaints director.
Yes.
And that position is to try to be a bridge. If you don't want to go directly to the RCMP with your concerns, you can go to the public complaints director. I think that Ray, give me a nod. Is it on the website now?
Yeah, it's on the website now. It's Mr. Al Bahoychuk. So he will help you make a formal complaint to the RCMP and guide you through the process if you feel uncomfortable making a complaint directly to the RCMP.
Exactly. Yeah. So the only reason I put my hand up, other than that, it's too bad Pam couldn't join us. She's a good district commander of our
superintendent.
Superintendent, thank you. And so maybe another opportunity in the future would be to engage the RCMP directly, because that has been a lot of the conversation over the last 2 or 3 months. But I put my hand up more just to kind of do a wrap up. So, one of the things I mentioned earlier, I've lived in St. Albert for 51 years now. I think there was a young man named Ken in my class from grade 1 to 6. He was from India, but other than that, very, very monochromatic community that I grew up in. When I was a mother, I used to teach Sparks, which is like the little kids and Girl Guides, and they all wear these cute little pink shirts. And we were working on a badge, and it was a culture badge. So their homework was to go home and ask their parents, a little bit about their history, what foods they eat, what traditions they had. And the next week they sat around in a circle, probably 15 little blonde, 2 pigtails in their head with pink shirts on, not a single color face in there. And all I heard about was pierogies and haggis. It was all Scottish and Ukrainian. That was the gamut of even what my kids were exposed to. So I think there's probably some, I wrote it down here, just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So I think there's some hidden issues that St. Albertans are not unaware of, and a group like what I'm engaging with right now really does help to bring it to light. It's not about we don't care. It's just we need to understand better. You know, tomorrow our council is going to be debating a big report that we commissioned on homelessness. So people in St. Albert don't think there's homeless, but it's hidden. So all these hidden issues need to be brought to light. And I really honestly believe that what we're doing right now is remarkable. It's more than just a 2-hour Zoom call. I really honestly think it's remarkable, and we need to continue it. So hopefully, as Glenn has said earlier, it's in person next time, and hopefully there's food and dancing. But maybe the RCMP could attend. Maybe some stories could be told. I think there's always room for improvement, so we need to hear what we can do better. But we got to remember how lucky we are that Canada is our home country. The big difference I always find between the United States and Canada is the United States calls it a melting pot. They want everybody to come into the United States and melt into one culture. But in Canada, we call it the mixing pot. Everybody come and we mix together. We don't forget where we came from. We mix and we share, and we are this conglomerate of color and culture and practices and religion, and it's all should be celebrated. So just my closing remarks are thank yous again. Thank you to all of you that do this work. This is the 3rd or 4th event that I've attended, and I'm getting to know some faces much better. Helen, I love the laugh. She's been very quiet today, but I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. And we are honored to have you, and thanks for your support always. You've been very supportive from day one, right from the park in August, all through all our program. Thank you very much. And we will not disappoint. We will make sure that we blend well, and we, like you said, we don't lose our culture and we don't lose what we have.
Yeah. And I think what's so important is that you guys are supported, because this is a grassroots effort. And quite often, if government tries to instill policy or programs or say you need to do this, that people don't listen. But when it comes from the bottom and it's grassroots, it has much more impact. So I can't let you guys ever disperse. You guys need to stay together forever. So whatever the city can do, whether it's financial or giving you the Arden or giving you a park for a barbecue or whatever, and you know Ray and I will be there, and Michael and the school board. So financial or other, we'll do our best to make sure you guys are supported.
Okay, so Glenn's, Cheryl, I see your hand, but I see that Glenn's has her hands up on the screen a while ago, so I will let her go and then I'll come to you.
Thank you. And I too just want to thank Helen for the invitation to be here and listen this evening. I've taken lots of notes and I have learned a great deal. And I appreciate all of the positive comments that many of you have shared about the great things that have happened, but I have also listened very carefully to the experiences that you have had that have not been so great, both in our schools and on our buses and in our city. And I want to invite all of you who have children in our schools to attend our parent councils. We need to hear these stories from you in your own children's schools as well. So you're very welcome to be part of our parent councils. Those are very welcoming, I hope, welcoming groups that really do help parents become a part of the school experience. So thanks again, and I look forward to any other opportunities to be with you.
Thank you. And I must tell you that the school councils are great. I do attend on my kids' school. So I've enjoyed that. I think that's a good program. Cheryl?
School board.
And then we would end up with Michael, with MP Michael Cooper. So Cheryl, if you want to go ahead so that...
I'll be very quick. Yes, thank you. I just have an idea. At Further Education / Star Literacy, we now offer 9 different languages. And when you're teaching language, we teach culture as well. It's how we approach language. So I just would like to make an offer out there. If there's anyone within your community that would like to instruct, and it might be language and culture, but it might just be culture. That we are certainly welcome to helping you do that and get either classes or workshops together. So Helen has my contact information, and I would be more than pleased to help you. We are doing some partnership with some young people, which is great, from the African community. We've got our fingers crossed we'll get that grant. But yes, I'd like to go beyond that. So we have just recently added both Ukrainian and Arabic to the languages that we're teaching. So 9 different languages. So I just make that invitation to you, because I think that the more you understand about the culture, the easier it is for us to learn how to get along together. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. MP Cooper, just 1 minute, let Joe talk and round up, and then we'll end up with you. Please indulge me with a minute or 2, everyone, so that we can end this. I would want Michael Cooper to round it up for us, but I want to give Joe an opportunity to.
Okay, very quickly, Mawuse, really disappointed that after 30 years, the incidents that occurred in the States has made you feel as it's felt. I want to go back to very early in our conversation tonight, when I think it was Ray who said, if you see or hear acts of racism, call the person out. And we all have to do that. Jesse Liskman, that I think most people know, he went to St. Albert High School, and he promotes that. If you see it, if somebody's telling you a joke and it's off color, call them out. And we all have to do that. If it's one of your own family, call them out. We have made tremendous introductory strides, let's say this evening. We've had about 50 people or so on this conversation. Let's continue the conversation. Let's get 150 people in on the next one, because that's how we're going to get the word out and how we're going to spread this. Thank you for the invite. Thank you to the organizers, and I think it's been very, very worthwhile and a great start. So onward and upward. Thank you.
Okay.
I got one last thing. I got a really interesting movie that's my cousin did on it's a Black history movie about Joe, you may know of Walter Perry, the guy who ran the Emancipation Festival. And I'd like to air it. So I'm going to try to put a Zoom call together, and I'll show the movie to you. It's an hour movie. It's a pretty interesting movie. Sorry about that.
That's fine. We will look forward to that, Councillor. Okay, back to Mr. Cooper.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And I really just wanted to thank everyone for their comments, their feedback. I've been listening intently. It's been very interesting, the discussion, and I think it's been a productive one. And I want to acknowledge Helen as well, who my office and I have been in touch with over the last while. And I know I haven't been able to attend a few of your events because I was in Ottawa, but my staff was at some of the previous events. And I look forward to continuing the dialogue, continuing the discussion. If you have any issues or questions at the federal level, my office is a resource. We're here to help. So the door is always open. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's an excellent thing. And we thank you, and we thank the mayor, like I said, that has always been very helpful to us. And we thank the members of the community, because without the members of the community, we won't be where we are. Canada is inclusive, but we can do better more. We can do more. Thank you everyone for attending this and sending in questions and participating. We intend to follow up with all our stakeholders.
Bring my phone, please. Bring my phone quickly.
One way or the other, we intend to follow up with all our stakeholders. we would look at doing more of this, and this is an eye-opener. There have been so many things that is going on that are happening that we don't know about. And this is definitely an eye-opener to us too. And we would take up the opportunity to build a stronger community and be part of the community. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a very good evening and a good week ahead of you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.